Hey everyone, welcome to hashtag Malkin Live. It is a super busy Monday and I've got some epic guests for you. My first guest is the legendary conservative talk show host in Wisconsin, Vicki McKenna. Without further ado, I'm going to bring her in. Hey Vicki.
Hi, Michelle.
And I don't know if you noticed, I am wearing the hat that I got from the Waukesha women last week. That caused quite a bit of triggering the photos, not only with you, but of course with Wendy Rittenhouse and Kyle Rittenhouse's lead criminal defense attorney, John Pierce. I was glad to see that the Waukesha women did not back down from that. They're under a lot of heat, not only from the usual gun control nuts like Shannon Watts, et cetera, but also the establishment types there, the rhinos. But here's my shocked face on that. But you raised a huge issue, right? You raised a huge issue at the event about what's going on with the Joe Biden campaign in the city of Madison. I'm just going to toss it over to you so that you can tell all of the viewers on my live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter what the hell is happening there.
All right. Well, on Thursday of last week on my radio program, we played ads, Biden campaign ads. And they were all about something called Democracy in the Park. And it was an advertisement about how Madison, Wisconsin would have 200 parks hosting ballot harvesting events throughout the Saturday. And then, of course, they also advertised an additional date coming up as well. And it says at the end of this, paid for by Joe Biden for president. So it is an ad about allegedly a city event paid for by Joe Biden for president. Virtually no one had heard of Democracy in the Park in Madison before until this ad ran. The ad ran multiple times. My inbox blows up and people say, well, what's going on? So what we find out is that the city of Madison is hosting 200 sites for ballot collection. And what we find out subsequently is that it is, in fact, ballot collection, in-person absentee balloting. In-person absentee balloting does not start in Wisconsin until 2 weeks before the election. There are very strict rules about in-person absentee balloting. But Madison was going to put 200, it did put 200 people in city parks on Saturday with big red zipper bags that have no security whatsoever to collect ballots. Their poll workers witness people's ballots, just like you would if you did an in-person absentee ballot, threw them in red zipper bags. And we don't know what's become of these ballots since. It is clear from a legal analysis that some of the Wisconsin GOP state reps had provided that this is not legal, that it does not comport with Wisconsin election law. The city of Madison insists that Joe Biden wasn't behind this, but the only way anybody ever found out about it was an advertisement by Joe Biden. So there's some serious question about campaign coordination with the city of Madison. And we have subsequently learned that the city of Madison was the recipient of a grant from a group called Center for Tech and Civic Life. Please look that up. It is a left-wing organization that is dedicated to tearing apart different election integrity mechanisms that states like ours have put into place, like voter ID and other types of restrictions. And City of Madison took a $1.2 million grant from a private left-wing organization that has a set goal of tearing apart the policy changes that the conservatives have made. And we are reasonably certain that at least some of that money funded this event this past Saturday. We've also got reports from the field that people were asking folks for their party registration, their party information before they were taking their ballots. And so, I mean, we right now, we don't have these ballots segregated. We don't know what could happen. We don't know if these ballots are going to be counted fairly or even secured properly. Today, we saw a white van loading up these red bags, and we have no idea what the destination is.
This is just like pure insanity. I mean, we've got the leftists and the Democrats wailing and moaning about President Trump undermining the peaceful transfer of power while this is going on in public parks. And sponsored by the Biden campaign. So you tweeted out pictures of some of this stuff happening on Saturday. Here's a picture of those red bags that you're talking about. And so here's the question, Vicki, where the hell is the Republican Party?
Well, Michelle, that's a really good question. I have been communicating with the Republican Party. Now the Trump field people in Wisconsin are excellent, so they're trying to get information. They put bodies, as many as they could, in the parks in Madison. Remember, every city park in Madison hosted one of these events with paid poll workers. So again, we're trying to figure out where the money came from. We think it may have come from this grant from this left-wing organization, but the Trump people in Wisconsin are doing a good job. The Republican Party, as of today, is asking people to contact the party directly if they've got information. But I had contacted them back on Thursday. I contacted them on Friday. I got mixed messages from the GOP folks. One person said, "Oh, I think this is totally legal," which you're just like, it's not though, because here's the statute that says it isn't. Friday afternoon, we had legal representation for legislative Republicans strongly suggesting it was not legal as well. And so now I'm not sure where the state GOP is on this. Good that the Trump field people are on this, but it doesn't look like we've got anything coordinated to get ahead of it, to segregate these ballots. I'm very worried about these ballots not being segregated, and to make sure the next event, which is coming up on October 3rd, exactly the same kind of event, is stopped.
So on October 3rd, they're going to be going back to parks. Are they moving this to different cities now? Do you know what's going on with that, especially with this nonprofit involved?
Yeah, we don't know if anybody else has one of these events. I think what the other cities, if in fact they had scheduled these events, are probably not going to advertise them as aggressively as we saw advertised with the Biden campaign. But if you look at this, so I don't know, but this group, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, there's a lawsuit right now proceeding against this group, an ad hoc conservative organization, not affiliated with the Republican Party, has filed a federal lawsuit against them because it's private money that is being delivered to cities to conduct elections. And if this in fact is the money behind the Madison event, conduct elections with illegal ballot harvesting. But
right.
we know that in Wisconsin, Madison got $1.2 million from them. Milwaukee got $2.1 million from them. Again, the group is called Center for Tech and Civic Life. Green Bay got $1.1 million. These are all the dense population areas of Wisconsin. Kenosha, $862,000, in Racine, $942,000 from this left-wing organization to conduct election events and to train poll workers and to collect ballots. And so you're talking over $6 million from the left-wing organization to the 5 largest population bases in Wisconsin. Seems to me the Republican Party ought to get ahead of this and find out where this money is going and stop these kinds of events, because it won't take much to put your thumb on the scale of Wisconsin. It was pretty razor thin last election.
Yes, that's right. I do believe that it is the most important battleground state in America. I mean, it was a less than 1% margin of victory for Trump. And we know the cliche, every ballot counts. Well, the left understands that. Why doesn't the right? So right now I've pulled up your other tweet here showing that white van that you're talking about. And there are all the red unsecured bags just lying around.
Yeah.
You can't make this up.
No, you can't.
There's the mythical figure of Cassandra, warning at the top of her lungs about danger and disaster, and not being heeded, and not being paid attention to. At the event, I mentioned True the Vote, which is one of the nonprofits on our side out there that's helping do this kind of stuff. We definitely have to get you connected with them. But of course, now election fraud is in the news, with James O'Keefe coming out with absentee ballot fraud and other types of in-person voting fraud happening in Minnesota. But Wisconsin, I mean, the MacGyver Institute is mentioned here, and another group, Empower Wisconsin. What is their role in all of this? Are they watchdogging? Are they doing something?
The MacGyver Institute is best described as a conservative policy think tank.
Mhm.
That the Empower Wisconsin people are just hardcore conservatives looking, and they've hired one of the most talented investigative journalists that we have in our state, a guy named Matt Kittle, to
Mhm.
do some serious deep diving into some of these issues. So they are about exposing corruption. MacIver Institute is more of a policy oriented group. Both groups, however, are very good at getting to the news that the mainstream press won't share with Wisconsin. Notably, Tony Evers, the governor of Wisconsin, has blocked reporters from both the MacIver Institute, which has a news service,
Mhm.
bona fide reporters with press passes, and Empower Wisconsin, also a news service, bona fide reporters with press passes, has blocked reporters from both of those organizations from attending any press conferences, from asking any questions. And importantly, Michelle, not just about the crazy ballot harvesting, that the illegal ballot harvesting. Let me make that abundantly clear. Ballot harvesting is illegal in Wisconsin. Going on in Madison, we have the Democratic Party and other associated groups, so League of Women Voters, et cetera, suing to attempt to get Wisconsin's ballots that are cast and collected after Election Day counted. So
Yes.
very similar to what's
Yes.
going on in Michigan. We just had an appellate court halt a lower court's decision that would have extended Wisconsin's election 6 days past the deadline. So at least we got some success in the appellate court. But what we know about these organizations is that they're very good at moving that legal ball fast enough that they may be able to get themselves a reversal of an injunction before Election Day. So it's coming at us from all sides, and we're kind of getting, it feels like we're getting shelled with by procedure, by the left's manipulation of procedure here.
Yes, right. The same way that they bollocks up the courts with what they call lawfare. This is essentially election lawfare. And by the way, just for everyone who's watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, here's another one of Vicky's tweets highlighting. Where's this guy sitting in front of? I don't know if you can see the share screen here.
Oh, that's the Madison Municipal Building. That's the municipal building. I kid you not. You can walk into the clerk's office and you can get your absentee ballot and vote, but you got to do it 2 weeks before Election Day, not today. That guy's sitting out in front of the City of Madison's municipal building, and nobody cares.
Yeah, right. With his unsecured red bag. I can't even, Vicky.
It's Michelle, it looks like a lunch bag, for heavens. It looks like a big lunch bag. You put like a couple of sodas and a sandwich in. And you can see in my pictures that there's very clearly, it's marked Madison absentee ballots. It's just a regular, cheap, flimsy canvas bag. It's not it's not like a mail bag. It's not like a bag that you might see the Brinks people drag around with security and chains. It's just a plain old canvas bag with a zipper top that looks kind of cheap, quite frankly. And that's
it looks like a Grubhub delivery bag, actually.
Right. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I want to go back to the federal ruling because I want you to sort of walk through this at a more elementary level here, because what's going on is, so viewers, you watched last week when I interviewed Darren Beatty, who's been pounding the drum on the color revolution strategies. And this is clearly one of them, is to stretch out Election Day for as long as possible beyond Election Day. And this is the main tactic to do it, to count ballots days and days and days after Election Day happens. And so the federal judge, I'm just reading here from a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article, had a rule that absentee ballots would be counted if they're postmarked by November 3rd and received by clerks by November 9th. Ordinarily, ballots must be in the hands of clerks by the time polls close on Election Day. And so this is their precedent-setting thing, because if they can extend it in Wisconsin, they'll do it everywhere else, right?
Absolutely. And remember that in Michigan, I believe the judge's ruling in Michigan gave the state of Michigan 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That's right. Past Election Day to count. And so again, a battleground state, Michigan. And then you saw, and if folks haven't seen Project Veritas, James O'Keefe's amazing expose on Minnesota, please watch that, because now you're talking about 3 states Trump is targeting. Let's add Pennsylvania to that, where we heard news last week that FBI is investigating discarded military absentee ballots marked for Trump. We also just got information. Michelle was correct me if I'm wrong. The state of Virginia, I believe, found 1,400 double voted ballots already. So you've got key states that Trump is making a play for that are all screwballs at this point. So you've got Wisconsin, and I'm told that Project Veritas has something on Wisconsin coming out next week, which is terrifying me. But on this issue of extending the deadline on voting, what we've already been through in our state are multiple recounts, and one of them was for a Supreme Court justice back in 2011 named David Prosser. We learned the playbook for the left in the recount of David Prosser. So first you get the canvas on, this is how it would happen if we extend our election deadline to November 9th. You get the canvas on November 9th. That's just the canvas. That doesn't begin the recount. Simply because of outstanding ballots, you're going to get, the lawyers flying in all over to demand recounts of certain districts, certain precincts, which would extend it out maybe another 2, 3. In the case of the Prosser recount, it was 6 weeks.
Holy
6 weeks.
Crap.
Every ballot that they can challenge, they will challenge. There is enough money on the Biden side to send as many people here as necessary to challenge every ballot as they see fit. So there is a very real potential that we do not have the announced winner of the state of Wisconsin, maybe even by the end of the year. Now, add to that a 4-4 split on the United States Supreme Court. And add to that Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota or Pennsylvania or some of these other states, and we don't have a declared winner. The idea that it's Trump that doesn't want a peaceful transition of power is hogwash.
Right. It's the worst kind of gaslighting.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that this manufactured chaos has been the plan. This is what you're saying with the playbook with this Prosser election, and yet again, it just seems that the Republican machine is caught flat-footed every single freaking time.
I don't know.
Wait, can't hear you. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So repeat what you said. Couldn't hear you. Lost your audio.
I don't know why we constantly play catch up, and I wish I had the answer to that. There is a sense of sort of status quo election that is an affliction of the Republicans. We haven't had status quo elections in Wisconsin since 2011, since we went through recall hell and then recount hell. I mean, why the GOP's lawyers aren't thinking asymmetrically like the Democrats' lawyers always are is something that I wish I could explain, but I think I can only explain it by the Republican Party is slow to change, and it approaches every election in the exact same way. Get out the vote phone calls, canvassing on doors. Not that these are bad things. The same doom and gloom sounding TV and radio ads, tabletop ads, nothing. It's like you can just rinse, repeat on every election. It's a template. I think they're committed to the idea that their templates win elections, not realizing that it's people and it's strategy and it's tactics that win elections. And right now, the Democrats aren't going to win Wisconsin on the message, but they might win Wisconsin on the tactics.
Yes. And it's this very deliberate overwhelming of the system. Every rank and file conservative who's been in these battles for the last 30, 40 years can invoke Alinsky, and they have this sort of they have this cognitive understanding of it, but then they cannot. I mean, how often do we hear about 40 chess, but they can't even play 1D chess?
No kidding. And I'll tell you something, you're right. All the good people, good grassroots people I know, they've all read Rules for Radicals. If you say Cloward Pivot, by the way, the election strategy we see is Cloward Pivot for elections, right?
Yes.
They all know what it is. And yet, when it comes time to execute a ground game, we're using the same templates. We're using the same ideas. We're blowing the dust off the same, ads and the same music beds and the same voice talent and the same sort of In a normal time, it'd be fine. But
Yeah.
we see what they're doing. We've got ballot harvesters in the second largest repository of Democrat votes in Wisconsin. That's Madison. Milwaukee being number one. By the way, Madison is the third largest number of Republican votes. One would think we put some effort into a place that has the third largest number of Republican votes in Wisconsin. But
Right.
I think a lot of people also just sort of roll their eyes and say, oh, well, that's what Madison does, or, oh, well, that's what Milwaukee does. So the other night when I saw you, Michelle, and I said, we've got to get beyond the margin of fraud, this is what I'm talking about, is that people get this sense of inevitability that they're just going to cheat and there's not much we can do about it.
Yes, exactly. So you're raising the alarm. You're urging people to be election observers and get on the offense rather than the D here. And I see this connected. I mean, and you've connected the dots. We're looking at Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Michigan. And with the James O'Keefe investigation out there, all of the people in my comments are like, well, what's going to happen? Because they're just so used to nothing happening. What do they do? What do we do? Yeah.
I wish I had the perfect answer. What has to happen in Minnesota is the county district attorney has to open an investigation. And since he won't, then you would expect the attorney general. But that's Keith Ellison. So, he's not going to open an investigation. So it requires Bill Barr and his team to get in there and begin securing the situation, segregating ballots. So the identified apartment complexes that James O'Keefe was talking about in his Minnesota expose today, where there's cash for ballot transfers, cash for ballots. You segregate every one of those ballots in those, and this is, Keith Ellison won't do it. Bill Barr ought to do it. Lock it down, segregate those ballots, and then go back and ask everybody to account for their choice on a ballot before those ballots are counted. In Wisconsin, these ballots in the park must be segregated, and they must then be set aside and investigated if it's a close race to see whether or not the people who cast those ballots were in fact the ones who signed their names and the ones who actually did that. So what we need is the Trump administration to tee up Bill Barr to tee up his election, the FBI agents that work for the Election Integrity Division. There's a number of different places he can pull these guys from, and throw them like a net across the battleground states, and so that we can at least have a chance of stopping, ballot box stuffing here, because it's going to happen if we don't.
Yeah. So the Center for Tech and Civic, what was it called?
It's called the Center for Tech and Civic Life. It's got money from Facebook, Google, the Knight Foundation, Rock the Vote, League of Women Voters, the who's who of left-wing organizations. They have a gazillion dollars, and they have been throwing their money around the United States, and we have been the repository in Wisconsin of 6.3 million of those dollars. If you look at them, if you look them up on the some of the public watchdog groups out there, you'll see that they are dedicated to undoing election integrity changes that states have made.
So they have nonprofit status, is that correct?
Of course they do.
So why aren't we challenging their nonprofit status? Why isn't there an IRS? And I know. I know.
So silly.
I know, it's ridiculous. October 3rd is the next time there's going to be this voter registration and absentee ballot harvesting in Madison. That's right?
Yeah, same exact routine. Red bags with zippers, no locks on them, 200 parks, people in lawn chairs, just stuffing ballots in red bags.
And so for this last weekend, you had people taking pictures and you were able to share that. If you are in Wisconsin, people, and anywhere near or even far, drive there and bring your smartphone or camera and film it. That's one simple step. We talked about that last week at the event, right, Vicki?
Absolutely true. And happily, we did have some people, my listeners, at least in some of the larger parks, went, took pictures.
Oh, we got a freeze here. Vicky talking about her army of
dispatch volunteers and get us people to help us out. So, hopefully that's enough. And I'm not sure if I just lost my connection with you.
Yeah, repeat what you just said
so
about
but that's what I would say. And unfortunately, Michelle, you're breaking up.
Yeah, you too. Can you hear me now? Okay, we lost her. So you can follow Vicky on Vicky McKenna at Vicky McKenna. And you can also find more on her show page for her talk radio station, which is WIBA.com/Vicky. Okay, yes, awesome. So you were talking about your army of radio listeners who were out there at the parks this past weekend, who were taking some pictures.
I'm really sorry. I apologize for my connection. I'm in good Wi-Fi, bad cell service. So
yeah, no worries.
We had some of my listeners went to some of the larger parks, took those pictures. Those pictures you see on my Twitter are because of good, courageous people who are willing to go there. By the way, it doesn't take a lot to just snap a picture. You're not going to get beat up for snapping a picture and getting that information to us. But I'm asking everyone, whether you're just a small group, maybe you're a Tea Party remnant group and you're still in Wisconsin, or you're the Republican Party system, or you're the Waukesha women who invited us to speak the other night, Michelle.
Yes.
Get every one of those parks and monitor what is going on. And if I'm asking, I'm on bended knee asking the Republican Party to please get the lawyers to get those ballots segregated so that we do not see Wisconsin stolen for a guy who doesn't even want to come visit us. Joe
Amen. 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 And it is such a frustration. I don't know if you're still connected, to have a glut of lawyers and then not enough when you need them. How is this that we have this situation? So look at this picture. If you're just joining late here, this is a picture that one of Vicky's listeners took at one of the Madison parks, 200 of them last weekend. Illegal ballot harvesting. It is illegal to harvest ballots in Wisconsin. This happened all weekend. It's going to happen again. Vicki, I just want to give you one last word here. I know you've got to get to your show where you continue to pound the drum on this and disclose new information. Go ahead.
All right. I would just like to, please be our army. Please be, everybody's got video cameras. Everybody's got a smartphone. If you see something, take a picture. If you're in Wisconsin, send it to me, Vicky McKenna at iHeartMedia.com. You can tweet them at me or Facebook them to me or email them to me. If you're outside Wisconsin, Southern Wisconsin media market, and you don't have a network of good talk shows, we have an outstanding and powerful conservative network.
Absolutely. It looks like we lost her one more time. So there's her email for Vicky, Vicky at iHeartMedia.com. I will be back at noon Mountain, 1 p.m. Eastern time with Steve Drazkowski, the Minnesota GOP representative who really has been the driving force on investigating Ilhan Omar's immigration fraud, tax fraud, and election fraud. And we'll tie it to everything that's going on with Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. So thank you so much. Oh, there you are, Vicky. We're just going to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for your time. Keep putting the heat on. Love you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. All right, guys, thanks for that. And thanks for rolling with some of the tech problems there. I still have a couple thousand people online here, so I'm going to take a couple of questions. And like I said, I will be back in an hour and a half with Steve Drazkowski, just trying to get as much information out there as possible. And Vicky does a fabulous job. If you're in Wisconsin and you're not listening to her, then you're doing it wrong, because she is just such a role model of how a local talk show host can make a difference, filling the vacuum that's left by so much of not just the liberal liberal media, but the Republican establishment as well. I've known Vicky for so many years, and back in the heyday, the early part of the Tea Party movement, before it was hijacked by Con Inc., Vicky was there, and she's just been one of the stalwart, vigilant voices for the Republican populist grassroots movement. What exactly is ballot harvesting? Somebody asks. Well, like Vicky mentioned, it is illegal to harvest ballots, which means basically you have third parties who are allowed to collect massive amounts of ballots for other people and turn them in. And there are some states that allow these third parties to collect and deliver ballots in certain states, and it's illegal in others. In some states, there are certain restrictions that allow you to only harvest a very small amount, like a half dozen or less than that. And what's happening, as you saw in the videos, I'm sure everybody has seen them now, despite all of the censoring and shadow banning by Silicon Valley. But what the videos, undercover videos, are showing, and some of the videos of bragging of these liberal activists in Minnesota, is that they are collecting hundreds and hundreds of them against the law, and then committing all sorts of fraud. And stay tuned, because there's going to be much, much more than that. It is criminal, as JC De La Rosa said, and Vicky mentioned in Wisconsin. Let's see. I'm going to look at some of your comments, and then, like I said, I will be rejoining you in less than an hour and a half with Steve Drazkowski to talk about Minnesota. Let's see. What else do we have here? I'd like to hear about the kinds of fraud that you're seeing in your states. As we've seen over the last week, we've got ballots that have been discovered in ditches. We've got military ballots where, a handful of them were opened, unsealed illegally, and turned out these were votes for Trump that were tossed aside by postal workers. And it all adds up, one here, a dozen there, 1,000 here, 1,000 there. And the importance of getting beyond the margin of fraud, as Vicky said, is so, so important. Kamari Delaunay says Minnesota is collecting ballots from the elderly, 3 high-rise buildings filled with the elderly ballots collected. The importance of being organized, being on the offensive, is more brazenly urgent than ever here. And clearly the Republican machine is not geared up for this. And that's what alarms me the most. You connect it to what Darren Beattie has been talking about, all in the nonprofit organizations, the constellation of these State Department bureaucrats, former Obama officials, all of the tax-exempt nonprofit organizations, whether they're directly subsidized by Soros or not. There's a plethora of them, right? It's an entire constellation of the legal organizations, the identity politics organizations, the open borders organizations, all working in concert with each other with one goal. So I will be back. Thanks for joining me. And make sure you tune in during the lunchtime hour. It'll be 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back with Steve Drazkowski. Take care, everyone. Get on the offensive.